right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called The Lighthouse 2019. Giving it 5 out of 5 stars. I love this flick. We like psychological terror on this channel. This is going to be another Adrian recommendation. And I can't read the movie poster. Something about the witch, Robert Patterson versus William Dafoe. An instant classic, it says on there. I can read some of it, but it's a little blurry. Sorry about that. Wow, this movie is awesome. My kind of flick for sure. Highly recommended. Check it out. The Lighthouse. This movie blew me away. The Lighthouse is a 2019 film directed and produced by Robert Eggers from a screenplay he co-wrote with his brother, Max Eggers. It stars Willem Dafoe, and Robert Patterson as 19th century lighthouse keepers in turmoil after being marooned at a remote New England outpost by a wild storm. The film has defied categorization in media, and interpretations of it range among horror film, psychological thriller, or character study, among others. The idea for the film first emerged from Max Eggers' re-envisioning of Edgar Allan Poe's unfinished short story of the same name. Robert Eggers assisted the development when Max was unable to complete the adaptation of The Lighthouse, sourcing the plot from a 19th century legend of an accident at a lighthouse in Wales. The Lighthouse draws visually from photography of 1890s New England, maritime-themed French cinema from the 1930s, and symbolist art. Principal photography took place in Nova Scotia, Canada, beginning in April 2018 and lasting slightly over a month. It was shot in black and white with a nearly square 1.19 to 1 aspect ratio. The film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival on May 19th, 2019, and it was theatrically released in the United States by A24 on October 18th, 2019. It grossed over $18 million against a $4 million to $11 million budget, and it received widespread critical acclaim, with particular praise for the direction, visuals, and performances of Dafoe and Patterson. Among its numerous accolades, the film was nominated for Best Cinematography at the 92nd Academy Awards and the 73rd British Academy Film Awards. This film is perfect. It's a lot like another my favorite psychological terror movie of all time. My favorite movie of all time, period. Seconds, with Rock Hudson. All right. Production companies: A24, Regency Enterprises, RT Features, Parts and Labor. Distributed by A24 in the United States, and VVS Films in Canada. Release dates: May 19, 2019 at Cannes, and October 18, 2019 in the United States. Running time 109 minutes. It was kind of a long movie, but well worth the wait. The ending was inexplicable, bizarre. It was like being in a nightmare dream. Countries: United States and Canada. Language: English. Budget: $11 million. and box office 18.3 million. So that's US dollars, of course, in both cases. So I couldn't understand the mumbling dialogue. I had to turn on the subtitles, because it is 1890s language, and it's very and it's just 1890s English is a foreign language. Let me just put it to you that way. The mumbling doesn't make any sense. I had to go back and turn on the closed caption. In the 1890s, Ephraim Winslow begins a 4-week stint as a wiki lighthouse keeper on an isolated island off the coast of New England under the supervision of former sailor Thomas Wake. In his quarters, Winslow discovers a small scrimshaw of a mermaid, and he keeps it in his jacket. Wake immediately proves to be very demanding, subjecting Winslow to taxing jobs such as emptying chamber pots, maintaining the machinery, carrying heavy kerosene tanks up the stairs, and painting the lighthouse, while barring Winslow from the lantern room where he masturbates. Winslow observes that every night after ascending the lighthouse, Wake disrobes before the light, and he could see the seamen coming down through the holes. During his stay on the island, Winslow begins to hallucinate sea monsters and logs floating in the sea. I didn't know a dirty old man like Willem Dafoe could produce that much semen at his age. During his stay on the island, Winslow begins to hallucinate sea monsters and logs floating in the sea, and he masturbates to the mermaid on the scrimshaw. Now he's picking up his boss's bad habits. And let's just say Willem Dafoe is not the example of how to treat your employee. It is a government job, though, so it's to be expected that masturbation on the job is part of the job description. Winslow is bothered by a one-eyed gull, but Wake warns him against killing it under the superstitious belief that gulls are reincarnated sailors. One evening while dining, Wake reveals to Winslow that his previous wiki died after losing his sanity, while Winslow reveals that he is a former timberman from Maine who is stationed in Canada, and he is now seeking a new trade. He lies and says that he's doing it to save up money for a house. But he really did something bad on the job that ruined his reputation. That's why he's taking this crap job with Willem Dafoe, the dictator. The day before this scheduled departure, Winslow discovers a dead gull inside the cistern, blooding the drinking water. He is attacked by the one-eyed gull, and he brutally bludgeons it to death. Great scene. The wind drastically changes direction, and a fierce storm hits the island. Winslow and Wake spend the night getting drunk, and the storm prevents the lighthouse tender from collecting them the next day. Oh, we've got a storm a-brewing and no relief in sight. As Winslow empties the chamber pots, he discovers the beached body of a mermaid. Oh, here's another great scene, which wakes and howls at him. He flees back to the cottage, where Wake informs him the storm has spoiled their rations. Winslow is not worried because he thinks the tender is only a day late, but Wake says that they have already been stranded for weeks. The pair unearth a crate at the Lighthouse base that Winslow assumed contains reserve rations, but it is full of bottles of alcohol. As the storm continues to rage, Winslow and Wake get drunk every night, and they alternate between moments of intimacy and hostility. One night, Winslow tries unsuccessfully to steal the lantern room keys from Wake, and he contemplates murdering him. Winslow later sees the one-eyed head of Wake's previous wiki in a lobster trap. While drunk, Winslow confesses to Wake that his real name is Thomas Howard, and he assumed the identity of Ephraim Winslow, his cruel foreman in Canada, whom he deliberately allowed to drown, which is the same as murder. If you don't help somebody from drowning. Howard has a menacing vision of Wake, accusing Howard of spilling his beans, and he runs to the dory to try to leave the island on the emergency boat, but Wake appears and he destroys the boat with an axe. After chasing Howard back to their lodging, Wake claims it was Howard who chased them and hacked up the dory, as Howard was driven mad by his confession. So we don't know what's real and what's reality here. Who's telling the truth? We're only seeing it from this perspective of Thomas Howard, aka Ephraim Winslow. With no alcohol left, Howard and Wake begin drinking a concoction of turpentine and honey. And that night, a giant wave crashes through the wall of their cottage. In the morning, Howard finds Wake's logbook, in which Wake has criticized him as a drunken and incompetent employee and has recommended him to be sacked without pay, severance without pay. The two men argue, and Howard attacks Wake while hallucinating the mermaid, the real Winslow, and Wake as a Proteus-like figure. This is where we see some cool-looking hallucinations from the perspective of Thomas Wake, aka Ephraim Winslow. Howard beats Wake into submission, and he takes him to a hole at the base of the lighthouse to bury him alive, all the while treating him like a dog, literally. Before losing consciousness, Wake prescribes a Promethean punishment that awaits those who look in the lantern, and Howard takes the keys to the lantern room. Howard goes to get a cigarette, and Wake returns and strikes him with an axe in the shoulder. Howard disarms Wake, and he murders him before ascending the lighthouse. With a big splatter move, he takes the axe away from him and goes kaplunk in the oh boy. In the lantern room, the Frenzel lens opens to Howard, who reaches in and violently screams in distortion before falling down the lighthouse steps. And don't ask me how to explain the ending, because I don't understand how it went from that to the ending. Maybe somebody can explain it to me, but it was a great movie. Highly recommended. Very entertaining and captivating. Co-writer and director Robert Eggers. I got to give him credit for the writing on this one. I'm very much interested in seeing his first film, The Witch. All right. So I did add it to my list even before watching this, because I knew this was going to be my kind of movie, and it met my expectations. Written by Robert Eagers. All right. Pretty clever film. Definitely well done. It even got an Oscar nomination for cinematography. The original idea for The Lighthouse was first articulated at a dinner between director Robert Eggers and his younger brother Max Eggers. Robert was unhappy with his film industry prospects after the pitching of his first major feature, The Witch, failed to secure funding. 2005. I have The Witch on my 2015, excuse me. I have The Witch on my list now towards the bottom. Karate Man recommended another 3 Hulk Hogan movies. Hulk Hogan is the most popular name used by Terry Bollea, who used a lot of different names in the 70s, like 6 of them. Anyways, so I made fun of Karate Man. I told him if he says something is underrated, it's probably terrible. And Karate Man is reaching in the bottom of the barrel for these recommendations. It seems I wasn't impressed with the Stallone 90s stuff, and I've still got some more of that to go, unfortunately. But there were a couple that kind of stood out. Anyways, Max Eggers shared the basic outline of his screenplay, A Lighthouse set ghost tale, as part of an attempted reimagining of Edgar Allan Poe's unfinished short story, The Lighthouse. Adapting the short story proved troublesome, halting Max's progress on the script, which at the time had a tentative working title, Burnt Island. Robert started musing ideas to bolster the project's conceptualization, and with his brother's support, soon began investigating for source material. One story that caught the director's attention in his initial research was a 19th century myth of an incident at Small's Lighthouse in Wales, wherein one of the 2 wikis, both named Thomas, died while trapped at the outpost by a destructive storm. That both men were named Thomas, Robert recalled, compelled him to make a film with an underlying story of identity. Around the time there was a realized concept, Robert temporarily stopped his commitment to the Lighthouse when he found an investor to finance The Witch. The unexpected success of The Witch elevated Robert's directing profile. To exploit his newfound credibility, he pushed The Lighthouse among several other projects in his negotiation with studio executives. He and Max then resumed their work by exchanging and revising drafts. This coincided with more rigorous research of the period to develop the on-screen world, as Robert immersed himself in photos of 1980s New England, 1930s maritime-themed French films, and symbolist art for visual reference. The Eggers study of literature with maritime and surrealist themes informed the speech of the characters in The Lighthouse. They looked into the writings of Herman Melville, Robert Louis Stevenson, and H.P. Lovecraft, among others, before coming across the work of Sarah Orne Jewett, a novelist best known for the local color works set around the coast of Maine. Her dialect-heavy writing style proved the cadences of the leading characters in the film, rooted in the experience of her own sailor characters and real-life farmers, fishermen, and captains she had interviewed. Robert and Max also deferred to the dissertation on Jewett's technique to guide their direction for intense conversational scenes. These are the scenes that we learn about the delightful language of the 1890s. Very different from today's language. Uh, for instance, if you wanted to use a curse back then, you might say great horn spoon or something like that, which wouldn't make any sense nowadays because you can't really understand the what do you call it? It's like a Japanese person who comes to the United States. They don't understand all the different colloquialisms and can't think of the word that I want to say. Anyways, pretty cool stuff. I never really cared for Robert Pattinson that much because he was in a popular vampire soap opera thing. And it was called Twilight. I never got into Twilight. It was more of a female coworker obsession that occurred decades ago. Anyways, he looks kind of older, and Robert Patterson looks older. Actors Willem Dafoe, and Robert Patterson portrayed lighthouse keepers marooned on a remote New York island by a violent storm. Another force shaping the lighthouse's creative direction was the Eggers Theater background. The two men sourced elements from playwrights that influenced their work as young teens, chiefly artists such as Samuel Beckett, Harold Pinter, and Sam Shepard, whose writings examined male-centric perspectives of existential crises and psychosis. The film stars Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, who both separately approached Robert Eggers to express their enthusiasm for The Witch and their desire to collaborate. Pattinson and Eggers originally met to discuss Pattinson portraying a Victorian socialite in an unrelated project, but Pattinson passed because he believed the role would fail to challenge his acting ability. His next meeting with Eggers took place once he finished reading The Lighthouse's completed script. And during the conversation, Pattinson showed Eggers a clip of an intoxicated man screaming, "I am a demon," to convey this understanding of the director's vision. Eggers' initial film proposals with Dafoe were not so fruitful. Dafoe and Pattinson had met at a party, and Pattinson's participation in The Lighthouse was used as a selling point in pitches to Dafoe. When they met in person to discuss the project, the director was plain spoken in the conversation. Dafoe recalled, "There was no discussion. This is the way we're going to do this, my way or the highway." That's very unusual, especially for a two-hander from a director to say, "This is the way I see it, yes or no." In February 2018, it was announced that Dafoe and then Pattinson had been cast in the film with A24, Regency Enterprises, RT Features, and Parts and Labor to produce the film. To prepare for their respective roles, each actor employed different techniques. At the rehearsals, Dafoe, citing his theater background with the experimental troupe, the Wooster Group, drew from his spontaneous acting style in rehearsals, whereas Patterson planned his rehearsing from discussion of the script. Anya Taylor-Joy, who starred in Eggers' directorial debut, The Witch, was eager to work with him again and asked if she could play the mermaid. Eggers replied that there was not a role for her, and she really should not be in this particular mermaid. Taylor Joy then jokingly suggested she could play a seagull instead. All right. So we have an A-cup mermaid here with a very enticing nude scene. Her labia looks very unusual, like something out of Dagon. But her A-cup breast and her tiny pink nipple, very small areola, it was intriguing to me. And when the camera moved down to her midsection, I was not so intrigued because the filmmakers could not find a lighthouse suitable enough for the needs of the production. They constructed a 70-foot, 20-meter lighthouse set on Cape Fortune in Leif Erikson Park in Yarmouth County, Nova Scotia. The Lighthouse film set, Nova Scotia, Canada. Most of the interiors were filmed on sets constructed inside a hangar at Yarmouth Airport and in sound stages near Halifax. Principal photography began on April 9th, 2018, and it lasted approximately 35 days, which was slightly over schedule as a result of unforeseen circumstances on the set. Yeah, the weather looked terrible. Difficulties arose due to the remote location, the harsh climate, and technical caveats of the camera work. Additional photography took place in Pinewood and Brooklyn. Eggers had already envisioned shooting the lighthouse in black and white with a boxy aspect ratio before drafting of the script, although he and director of photography Jaron Blaski, who was working with Eggers for a third time, faced resistance from studio executives hoping to maximize the film's commercial prospects. The two men were adamant and did not want to shoot in color because they feared undermining the artistic integrity of their work. Here we have the director and the co-writer making all these demands on producer and actors, actually sticking up for themselves, which is quite admirable in my view. The Lighthouse film set was set in Nova Scotia, Canada, and it's got a nice picture on Wikipedia if anybody's interested. Initially, Eggers wanted to use a 1.33 to 1 aspect ratio, believing it would sufficiently capture the confined sets and the lighthouse's vertical orientation, but he reconsidered when Blaski suggested as a joke instead using the 1.19 to 1 aspect ratio that was used fleetingly during the film's industry's transition to sound. After further analysis of period films for inspiration, chiefly the German thriller M, 1931, another film that Adrian keeps talking about, M. I think I have it. Yeah, it's number 90 on my list. It's coming up soon. Blaski determined that the 1.19 to 1 format endowed footage with greater sense of confinement while amplifying the physical isolation of the characters in their environment. And the film was shot in that ratio. The film was shot on 35 millimeter film using Panavision Panaflex Millennium XL2 cameras equipped with vintage Bausch and Lomb Balter lenses, occasionally to capture flashback sequences or scenes of heightened conflict. Specialized lenses refurbished by Panavision were used. The on-screen universe was given a highly saturated visual palette evocative of orthochromatic film, creating the spectrum of textures with the sufficient antique quality was one of Blaskey's initial responsibility during the pre-production. He developed a process to test the utility of digital footage in color negative film stock versus the Kodak Vision 3 500T 5219 film before selecting Eastman XX 5222 stock based on the composition produced. Blaskey resumed the testing after securing the Baltar lenses for the shoot, this time with an arrangement of short pass filters, a class of scientific optical filters, and photographic filters most sensitive to blue-green and ultraviolet light. The specifications were so unusual that it required the manufacture of custom sets of filters of Schneider Kreuznachs, which was a costly month-long endeavor. Blaskey recalled, "I sketched a desired spectrograph on graph paper, indicating a complete elimination of all light beyond 570 nanometers mid-yellow, while allowing all shorter wavelengths to pass freely. At that point, I was unsure of the true light loss, and I was pretty nervous about it." Post-production editing of the Lighthouse occurred simultaneously at the Photochem Film Laboratories in Burbank, California. Mark Corvin produced the musical score for the Lighthouse. He previously scored for Eggers' directorial debut, The Witch. So we'll give him music credits, which accompanied a string-based score. Eggers wanted to deviate from using strings throughout the score, instead uses horns, pipes, and conch shells, evoking the mythology of the sea in a aleatoric manner through textures and instrumentation. We'll do music by Whoa. Typing too fast here. Mark Corvin. And we'll put him in the tags too. We edit the settings of this video impromptu, just like everything else. But there's nobody in the chat room. I've got nobody to talk to because nobody from Australia wants to talk on a Saturday. Maybe Monday. Maybe Monday I'll get lucky. Eggers then set a playlist that contained classic horror scores, ancient Greek conch shell music, and compositions of Italian composer Giacinto Sglisi. Apart from the affirmation instruments, the musical palette included cello, double bass, percussion, woodwinds, and instruments. Corvin had experimented with an apprehension engine also being used as a score. The sound design was not done when the score was completed, as the simultaneous process would affect Corvin's score. The original score album was released by Milan Records digitally on October 18, 2019, and it was followed up by an LP record published by Sacred Bones Records. The Lighthouse has been described as a horror film by critics such as Manohla Dargis of the New York Times, and as a psychological thriller by such critics as Lee Marshall of Screen Daily. Other critics said it was a film that could not be pigeonholed, with Owen Gleiberman of Variety declaring that you may feel in your bones that you're watching a supernatural shocker. Are we seeing a slice of survival, a horror film, or a study in slow brewing mutual insanity? How about all of the above? Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune echoed Gleiberman's statements, noting that the film's plot did not operate as any sort of conventional ghost story or thriller or anything. Eggers himself describes the genre as being akin to a weird tale. We like weird on this channel. Patterson stated in GQ that he thinks the film is 100% a comedy, and how when the film was up for award season, he tried to convince the Hollyweird Foreign Press Association that the film should be eligible for a nomination in the Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy category. Eggers says the film's subtext was influenced by Sigmund Freud, and he hoped that it's a movie where both Jung and Freud would be furiously eating their popcorn, given his simultaneous fear and admiration of the senior lighthouse keeper. The young keeper displays an Oedipal fixation. Patterson commented on the father-son dynamic in the film by stating that I was pretty conscious of how I wanted the relationship to come across. In a lot of ways, he sort of wants a daddy, and that as the film progresses, his character is increasingly looking for Willem Dafoe's validation as both a boss and a father figure. The film also echoes the Jungian archetype of the shadow, the unknown dark side, or blind spot of one's personality. Dafoe illustrated that the two keepers are put in this situation that's like a purgatory, and then the little personality, the little sense of self that they've created for themselves starts to get stripped away. You see what their real nature is, and that points them into a kind of desperation. Rosie Fletcher of Den of Geek gathered the way the pair embody wisdom and foolishness, hedonism and inspiration, honesty and trickery, and play with masculine and feminine roles seems to support the idea that one is the shadow of the other on some level, and speaks further to Jung's theories. Here's a nice depiction of the sea monster circa 1493 to 1503 by Albert Dürer. In the film, the senior lighthouse keeper, Thomas, warns the younger keeper, Ibrahim, of a maritime superstition that is bad luck to kill a seabird, especially an albatross. However, after being irritated by one, Ephraim kills a seabird and brings on a storm that traps the two men on the island. At the end of the film, Ephraim is seen on the ground with seagulls plucking out his organs. Oh, I just spoiled it. I don't know how he got from falling down the steps to the rocks there. There was a little bit of lack of continuity with the editing. This plot invokes the 1798 poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, in which a mariner kills an albatross and brings disaster to his ship. The The fate of the younger lighthouse keeper also invokes the myth of Prometheus, as after finally reaching the light and learning what is in it, he falls down the stairs of the lighthouse and his organs are plucked out by seagulls. On the other hand, the older keeper was modeled on Proteus, a prophecy telling ocean god who serves Poseidon, as he makes that uncanny, accurate prediction of how Ephraim will die at the end of the movie, and is even seen with tentacles and sea creatures stuck to his body in one of the younger man's hallucinations. Another cool scene. Albrecht Dürer's engraving The Sea Monster inspired Wake's appearance, with Eggers saying, "The Proteus figure that is clearly nautical is somewhat based on the sea monster by Dürer, who carries a tortoise shield, shell shield, a tortoise shell shield." Eggers explained the allusions to classical mythology by saying they are present partially because Melville goes there and partially because of, I'm sure, our unhealthy Jungian leanings. Hypnosis, 1904, by Sascha Schneider, which provided a visual reference for a scene in the film, is also a cool-looking depiction on IMDb. I guess it's a photograph of a naked man and some hooded figure with with blinding flashlight type eyes. The film primarily depicts two men alone in close quarters on an island, and it contains explicit depictions of male sexuality and homoerotism. But when asked whether the film was a love story, Robert Eggers replied, Am I saying these characters are gay? No, I'm not saying they're not either. Forget about the complexities of human sexuality or their particular inclinations. I'm more about questions than answers in this movie. The phallic imagery of the lighthouse is explicit, as Eggers described it in the script as an erect penis, revealing that the film was meant to include a very juvenile shot of a lighthouse moving like an erect penis and a match cut to actual erect penis belonging to Howard. But this sequence was removed at the request of the financiers. A body double of Pattinson was used to film the scene, and when asked about it in an interview, Pattinson said he did not know the shot was of a penis at first, initially assuming it was of the lighthouse. Sexual fantasy and masturbation are also recurring themes in the film. For Dafoe, the androphilia in the film is blatant, but it is also used to explore what it means to be a man. They have a sense of guilt, of wrong. It's got existential roots about masculinity and domination and submission. After beating the older lighthouse keeper into submission, the younger keeper assumes a dominant role, calling the older man dog and dragging him on a leash. Commenting on this scene, Pattinson said, there's definitely a take where we were literally trying to pull each other's pants down. It literally almost looked like foreplay. The mythical and artistic influences of the film underscore its eroticism. Eggers acknowledged the visual influence of symbolist artist Sascha Schneider and Jean Delville, whose mythic paintings in homoerotic style become perfect candidates as imagery that's going to work itself into the script. The composition of a shot in the film was conspicuously adapted from Schneider's Hypnosis, which is on Wikipedia if anybody wants to check it out. The Lighthouse had its world premiere on May 19th, 2019 in the Director's Fortnight section of the Cannes Film Festival. And it was screened at the Toronto International Film Festival and the Atlantic Film Festival in September. It was distributed by A24 in North America and by Focus Features internationally. And it was released in theaters on October 18th, 2019. The Lighthouse was released on digital in the United States on December 20th, 2019, and in Blu-ray and DVD formats on January 7th, 2020 by Lionsgate Home Entertainment. Later, it was released on 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray by A24 on March 28th, 2023. The film grossed $10.9 million in the United States and $7.5 million in other territories for a worldwide box office total of $18.3 million. Its limited opening weekend in the U.S., the film grossed $419,764 from 8 theaters for an average of $52,471 per venue. Its second weekend, the film expanded to 586 theaters, and it grossed $3.75 million, placing 8th at the box office. The following weekend, the film expanded to 978 theaters, but its gross fell 34.7% to $2 million, and it finished in 13th place. On review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds a whopping approval rating of 90% based on 398 reviews, with an average score of 8 out of 10. The site's consensus reads, "A gripping story, brilliantly filmed and led by a pair of powerhouse performances. The Lighthouse further establishes Robert Eggers as a filmmaker of exceptional talent." On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 83 out of 100 based on 52 critics, indicating universal acclaim. Owen Gleiberman of Variety called the film darkly exciting and made with extraordinary skill, commenting that the movie, building on The Witch, proves that Robert Eggers possesses something more than impeccable genre skill. He has the ability to lock you into the fever of what's happening on screen. Robbie Collin of the Daily Telegraph gave the film a perfect score, calling Dafoe's performance astounding and comparing Pattinson's to that of Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. Saying that's no comparison to make lightly, but everything about The Lighthouse lands with a crash. It's cinema to make your head and souls ring. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian, in addition to praising the performances of Dafoe and Pattinson, also praised the screenplay, stating that the script is barnacled with resemblances to Coleridge, Shakespeare, Melville, and there's also some staggeringly cheeky black comic riffs and gags, and the two of them resembled no one so much as Wilfrid Brambell and Harry H. Corbett, Steptoe and Son in Hell. Manhola Dargis of the New York Times praised the character development, production design, acting, and themes. We like the cinematography, the psychological terror, the weirdness, the black and white aspect ratio. And Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune gave the film 3 stars out of 5, comparing it to The Odd Couple, 1968, and The Dumb Waiter, 1957, and lauding the cinematography. Conversely, Sandra Hall of the Sydney Morning Herald said the film's attempts at suspense were not successful, and Simon Hands of The Guardian gave it 2 stars out of 5, saying the performances felt more like an experiment than conducive to eliciting meaning. Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle said the film was well made, but fails to give us the one thing that might have sustained an audience's interest over the course of 109 excruciating minutes, a compelling story. That's another reason to watch the banal situation of living with two polar opposite personalities in a lighthouse during a storm. Dana Stevens of Slate concluded her review by stating that The Lighthouse is at its strongest when it resembles the dark comedy of a Beckett play, complete with earthly scatological humor, but as the mythological references pile up and the forbidden light atop the tower accrues ever more and ever vaguer symbolic meaning, the film sometimes seems funny, not because of but in spite of the filmmaker's intentions, and that by the end she became impatient with Eggers' reliance on the atmosphere to take the place of story. And found herself identifying with the stranded seafarers. I desperately wanted to get out. That's another thing about this movie. The Willem Dafoe keeps saying that the light is mine. You can't go up there. And so it's like forbidden fruit to the Pattinson character. It goes by 2 names. All right. Accolades: Academy Awards Best Cinematography nominated, Austin Film Critics Association Best Supporting Actor and Best Cinematography nominated, Bram Stoker Awards Superior Achievement Screenplay nominated, Best British Academy Film Awards Best Cinematography nominated, Cannes Film Festival Prisky Prize Directors Fortnight Critics Week 1, Chicago Film Critics Association Best Cinematography nominated, Critics' Choice Movie Awards Best Supporting Actor and Best Cinematography nominated, Detroit Film Critics Society Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Screenplay nominated, Georgia Film Critics Association Best Supporting Actor, Best Cinematography, Best Production Design nominated, Gotham Awards Best Actor nominated, Hollywood Critics Association Awards Best Cinematography nominated, Houston Film Critics Society Best Supporting Actor nominated, Independent Spirit Awards Best Director, Best Male Lead, and Best Editing nominated, Best Supporting Male Actor, Best Cinematography 1, London Film Critics Circle Awards, British Irish Actor of the Year 1, San Diego Film Critics Society Best Supporting Actor nominated, Best Cinematography 1, San Francisco Bay Area Film Critics Circle Best Supporting Actor nominated, Satellite Awards Best Motion Picture Drama nominated, Best Supporting Actor 1, Seattle Film Critics Society Best Picture Best Director, Best Cinematography nominated, Best Supporting Actor 1, St. Louis Film Critics Association Best Horror Film nominated. Best Cinematography runner-up. Toronto Film Critics Association Best Supporting Actor runner-up. Washington, D.C. Area Film Critics Association Best Cinematography nominated. Grande Premio do Cinema Brasileiro Best International Film nominated. All right. More like this, The Birds, 1963, Ennie's Men, 2022, Friend of the World, 2020, Hour of the Wolf, 1968, which is a great film, by the way. Malcolm and Mary, 2021, and Repulsion, 1965, another great film starring the great Catherine Deneuve. Oh, man. Repulsion is a great film. We love Repulsion on this channel. Repulsion has to be in my top 20 movies of all time. Easily. How do I like Lighthouse? Did you see the movie? No? Well, if I wouldn't be reviewing the movie if I didn't see it, but that's not obvious because I'm reading off of Wikipedia. And you're probably new to my channel. So what I do is I watch the full movie. I try not to get distracted even when it's boring by looking at my phone while the movie's running or not paying attention to the dialogue. I even had the closed captioning turn on because I wasn't familiar with the 1890s language. And I can honestly say that this movie is highly recommended, 5 out of 5 stars. So there you have it. In terms of popularity, this one is astronomical. It's one of the most popular IMDb films, or films on IMDb, I should say. Out of all the films on IMDb, it's ranked 303 in terms of popularity, down 111. So this is definitely a lamestream film, but I still love it. The Lighthouse, 2019, rated R, 1 hour and 49 minutes. And it's not too long either because I enjoyed every second until the end, which didn't make sense, but I still loved it. Gets a whopping 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb. 277,000 ratings. 2 lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s. More like this: The Witch, The Northman, Midsommar, and Hereditary. I'm going to get all these in addition to the other movies that I mentioned, besides Repulsion and the other one that I've already seen. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll start adding a bunch of this stuff onto my list. As the wavering cry of the foghorn fills the air, the taciturn former lumberjack Ephraim Winslow and the grizzled lighthouse keeper Thomas Wake set afoot in a secluded, perpetually gray islet off the coast of late 19th century New England for the following 4 weeks a back-breaking work and unfavorable conditions, the tight-lipped men will have no one else for company except for each other, forced to endure irritating idiosyncrasies, bottled up resentment, and burgeoning hatred. Then, amid bad omens, a furious and unending squall maroons the Pale's beacon's keepers in the already inhospitable volcanic rock, paving the way for a prolonged period of feral hunger, excruciating agony, manic isolation, and horrible booze addled visions. Now, the eerie stranglehold of insanity tightens. Is there an escape from the wall-less prison of the mind? That's the storyline from Nick Reganis on IMDb. It's rated R for sexual content, nudity, violence, disturbing images, and some language. Yeah, no kidding. There's blasphemy in this. William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson stated that they barely spoke a word to each other on set, and they were too exhausted to hang out together after a day of shooting because filming was so physically demanding due to the miserable weather conditions. While Pattinson stayed at a normal hotel with the rest of the film crew during the shoot, Dafoe lived in a little fisherman's cottage in solitude. On set, on the other hand, Pattinson would tend to eat and stay by himself during filming breaks, while Dafoe stayed with the crew. Both stated that they liked each other very much as soon as they had their first conversation a few months later. One of the folk songs used during one of the drunken sessions in the film is On a Monday Morning, written by Cyril Tawney in about 1966, but the film is supposedly set in the 19th century. Quotes from Thomas Wake and Ephraim Winslow. Thomas Wake, you're fond of me lobster, ain't ye? I seen it. You're fond of me lobster. Say it, say it, say it. Ephraim Winslow, I don't have to say nothing. Thomas Wake, damn ye! Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow, hark! Hark, Triton, hark! Below bid our father, the Sea King, rise from the depths, full foul in his fury. Black waves teeming with salt foam to smother this young mouth with pungent slime, to choke ye, engorging your organs, till ye turn blue and bloated with bilge and brine and can scream no more. Only when he, crowned in cockle shells, with slither tentacle tail and steaming beard, take up his fell finned arm, his coral trident screeches banshee-like in the tempest and plunges right through your gullet, bursting ye a bulging bladder no more, but a blasted bloody film now, and nothing for the harpies and the souls of dead sailors to peck and claw and feed upon, only to be lapped up and swallowed by the infinite waters of the dread emperor himself, forgotten to any man, to any time, forgotten to any god or devil, forgotten even to the sea, for any stuff, for part of Winslow, even any scantling of your soul is Winslow no more, but is now itself the sea. This kind of portends to the ending. This stuff about souls of dead sailors peck and claw. I guess that was the ending of the movie. Ephraim Winslow says, all right, have it your way. I like your cooking. That was another great scene. I love how Thomas Wake comes up with these kind of Clash of the Titans imagery. It's pretty cool. Amanda the Jedi Show, faster than your first time reviews, Joker, Jojo Rabbit, Lucy in the Sky, and everything else from 2019 is connected to this. Soundtracks, Tis Braswork, based on the poem Braswork, The Lightkeeper's Lament by Frederick W. Morone Jr., melody by Mark Corvin. We put him in the description for music by, but they're calling it melody by, performed by Willem Dafoe. Really? So Willem Dafoe had a part in the soundtrack. Amazing. This actor is amazing. I didn't like him in Scream 2, but I did like him in this one. Didn't love it, but watched it is the title of the featured review on IMDb. It's done. It's written by Mr. Dobalina 4, dated August 22nd, 2020. They're giving it Mr. Dobalina 4 is giving it a 7 out of 10 rating. I'm rating it much higher, 10 out of 10. The acting is great. The cinematography is amazing. There's such a haunting feeling to this movie. The island and the lighthouse really feels like a place from which you never return. Everything is amazing about this movie, and I still feel like something's missing. The plot just can't keep up with the rest of the movie. I really loved watching it, but I didn't love it. Part of the reason to watch this film is the banal dialogue. And I'm glad I watched it on Amazon Prime with the closed captions on. Cost me $2.99 compared to the movie theater big screen, which doesn't have any closed captioning. And you're wondering what the heck they're talking about. Maybe this person on IMDb, Mr. Dobalina 4, had actually seen it on the big screen and he couldn't understand the dialogue, which is understandable. Even with this CC turned on, you get some of the vernacular and colloquialisms of 1890s. So there you have it. There's my review of The Lighthouse 2019. Thank you for that recommendation, Mr. Adrian. Going down the list, I've got Exiled to Shanghai, 1937 at the top. Silent Rage is second, 1982. Then third, last but not least, The Man Who Knew Too Much, 1956. So I'll try to get to the first two today, and then we'll move farther down the list. Hopefully get the next three in by Monday, which is a paid holiday for me. It's President's Day. All right. And I've got absolutely nothing to do. I'm going to get all my grocery shopping done on Sunday, the Sabbath day, even though I'm not supposed to. I'm going to do it anyways. Laters.